So joining me now is a fantastic, wonderful actress who appeared in the last ever episode of Blake 7. Was it her fault that everybody died? Let's find out. Please welcome the one and only Sasha Mitchell.
Hello.
Hello, Sasha. Hello.
Hi, Ian.
How are you coping at the moment in this, these strange times, really, that we find ourselves in?
I'm on a steep learning curve, so I've started to become a silver surfer. You can't see, but obviously I haven't been to the hairdresser for a while. I'm a lot greyer than I actually appear.
I know the feeling, yeah.
And so I've been learning Zoom, I've been learning WebEx and all these different platforms to communicate and try and carry on doing a bit of work. And I've been recording for BBC lockdown tales, little things, anything I can do to sort of cheer people up a bit, and a lot of cooking.
A lot of cooking.
Making bread and jam, and I'm about to make naan for the first time. So
now you just mentioned homemade jam, and that reminds me of something, because when we last met, which was, it's been nearly 2 years since we last saw each other.
It's been 2018.
That's right, at the 40th anniversary celebration for Blake 7. Yeah. And when I contacted you to come along, you said, "Oh, I'm making jam. Let me call you back." And so you rang me back, and you said, "Oh, I'm going to make some jam, and I'm going to call it Arlen's jam." And you said, "Oh, I will give you the jam." I'm still waiting for the. Oh, brilliant!
Yeah, but it's so old, I can't send it to you because it might kill you.
I think a few people would like me dead at the moment, so that'll be fine.
So yes, it's still here. When lockdown's over, come down to Devon and you can pick it up.
I shall do that. I'll have a cream tea, obviously.
Marvellous, yes. Blueberry jam goes really well with scones and cream.
Brilliant. I will look forward to it. So, well, thank you so much for giving up some of your time to talk about Blake 7, and I'm sure we'll talk about other things as well. So let's take you back to 1981 when it was filmed. First of all, how did you get the part?
I've forgotten a lot of things because I was very young, but I think I was 17. I turned 17 on the last day of filming.
Okay, wow.
But my maths is really bad. So if I was born in November 1962, you can work it out from there and know exactly how old I was. I got the job, I think, because I had been seen in a play for today, which was the first job I ever did for Stephen Frears. And in the BBC, in those days, it was difficult to find young actresses who weren't out of stage school. Mm-hmm. So they wanted somebody who was much more natural, not all teeth and smiles. I mean, I've got a lot of teeth, but I don't smile all the time. Mm-hmm. And I'd also had all my hair cut very, very short. And there weren't any young girls like that. So somebody will have seen me at the BBC and then called me in, because I was called in for interview. I didn't... they called me, which is a rarity. Doesn't happen anymore, but probably. No. And I think I looked a bit like Servalan.
Yeah, Jackie Pierce. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is actually a lot of fan stories and fan fiction around Blake 7, and a lot of people have tried to connect that. Were you the long lost daughter or a secret daughter of Servalan? And so, hey, who knows? Who knows?
Well, that was there was a line in my script when I first got it, the first script, and it was, "I'm Arlen, daughter of Servalan." And
really? Oh my goodness!
But the line went. I don't know why. When I finally met her, because I never met her until I came to one of your gigs.
That's right, yeah.
And I said to her, this was, we talked about it a little bit. And I said, I was so sorry not to have met you. I didn't mention what I'd been told. Yeah. But I said, I was so sorry to meet you, because not to have met you before. And I said, they said you were doing a one-woman show in Las Vegas. And she was very confused by that, because she hadn't at all. But they told me at the time, when I was little, that she wasn't very happy with that line because she wasn't old enough to have a daughter. And absolutely, that's fine. So it was changed. The line was changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, have you watched the episode? Did you watch it when it went out live, and have you watched it since?
I watched it when it went out live. Yes, of course I did. I was at school. I think my best friend came and we watched it together with my family. It was very exciting. Not so good at school the next day when I think I've told you this before, that people came up to me and said, I want you to die, because there were all these Blake 7 fans at school. And so I had to keep my head quite low for a bit there. Yeah.
Yes, I do remember you previously mentioning that you've had death threats and probably still receive them to this day.
Actually, no, I don't. And also the fan letters that I get are a lot cleaner nowadays. I think that's because I'm so old. The BBC I did get a lot from kids, and that was lovely. And eventually there were so many that the letters kept coming to my house. The BBC would just send them straight on without checking. And then I started to get some that weren't so friendly, or rather, they weren't as clean. And so the BBC then started to open them before sending them on, which was a bit of a relief to myself and my family.
And, next year, so it'll be 2021, it'll be 40 years next year since the episode. And actually, I know that because your episode went out when I was 1 week, maybe even 2 weeks old.
Oh, you baby. I'd like to see you then.
Oh, God. I'll have to dig out a picture and send it to you. So this is what it looked like when the last episode of Blake 7 went out. What I'm going to ask you is that would you be up for, and we've mentioned this already, but we're going to try and do, at the end of all these interviews that are going out on the Bank Holiday Monday, we're going to do a tweet-along to the last ever episode of Blake 7, and I'm going to invite you to join in if you can.
Well, now that I'm classed as a Silver Surfer, I think I've got to get on top of this tweeting business. I do have a tweeting account.
You do?
And I'll have a go.
Fantastic.
I think I once tweeted about a wonderful cup of coffee I had in a cafe in Hackney. That was the only thing I think I've ever tweeted about. And then I just read other people's tweets.
That's what I tend to do, actually. So the hashtag, for those of you who are going to take part in this, will be hashtag down and safe. And all the details will be released through Twitter and Facebook and through the website. But we'll come on to that later, so no worries. So let's get back to talking about your episode. So it was interesting because Gareth was back, and you had a lot to do with Gareth Thomas. Yeah. What are your memories of Gareth?
He was so much fun. And he was so nice to me. It was only my second job, I think. And so I spent a lot of time with him because he was a very sort of avuncular grown up, and he told me terribly funny stories about being a young actor and made me feel that he was human. So, yeah, I hung out with Gareth quite a lot, probably more than anybody else. And of course, all my first scenes were in the forest with him. And that was a wonderful time. A bit cold and damp, but apart from that, we had a good time together, And he's such a nice man. But everybody was lovely on that team.
And I suppose, as you said, this was your second job, but to be out on location and doing stuff, that must have been real good fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd been on location in the job before, but that was really boring. It was a lot of, well, it wasn't really boring, but it was sitting in gardens having conversations, it was a play for today. This was running about with a gun and a gun in my hands and a knife strapped to my thigh. Forks would have been more useful, actually. Catering was really good. The catering was always really good. But it was exciting, and having to fall over and sort of turn around in mid-jump and all of that stuff was great.
And am I right in saying that you had the photographer on set did some special photos for you, which you still have? Is that right?
I've still got the photos, yes. gosh, I should have got them out for you. But there were some great photos that he took. And there's one of me actually falling, having been shot, I think. Yep. And there's a lovely photo of Gareth and I discussing the rabbit that was being a real rabbit, dead rabbit, being cooked on a spit. And we ate it. It was very good. Like I say, catering was fantastic.
You actually ate the rabbit?
Oh, damn right. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Yeah, living on bits of rabbit. That was all right.
Oh, gosh. So then moving from the locations stuff, you were then in studio. What are your memories of the studio? Was it very busy, very pressurized? Because I know that at that time the BBC were very strict on filming. You know, we had to get it done by the second because at 10 o'clock the lights were out and stuff like that.
Well, the unions were really strong as well then. And it worked like clockwork. I'd already worked in, where we filmed, I think I'd done some filming already in the BBC studio in White City, which is where we filmed it. And so I was kind of used to that studio setting. However, going into a Blake 7 studio is not like any normal studio. You know, it's a spaceship, for God's sake. It's exciting. I do remember being asked if I wanted to have a go sitting in various chairs on, and things like that. Yeah, it was, people worked hard and fast. And so when it was time for tea and everything stopped, we would, if your director was on it, it would have been timed to do exactly that. And people were ready. You know, in those days we had time for rehearsal, so we were rehearsed before we went into it. It wasn't what they call rehearse record. Yeah. It was, you'd rehearse for 2 weeks or a week in Acton, in what used to be the rehearsal rooms, BBC rehearsal rooms.
Most actors refer to it as the Acton Hilton.
The Acton Hilton. Well, again, I'm sorry, I'm obsessed with food, but the catering, the canteen was fantastic.
And I bet whilst you were rehearsing, you know, and for the food, like you would see so many different contemporaries of yours from different productions, you know. Yeah. You know, like I've heard stories of like, oh, there's Morecambe and Wise over there, or who, you know, various well-known celebrities just getting their fish and chips and sponge and custard or whatever. Do you know what? This conversation is making me really hungry.
I know. Food is great, isn't it? No, I do remember being in there because I rehearsed there quite a bit, but of course they weren't my contemporaries because I was so young. Yeah, so of course, yeah. A lot of the time they were people that would just make my jaw drop and make it almost impossible to eat because you're so starstruck. You know, you suddenly see somebody who had a crush on screen, and God, there they were eating chips and beans. That's quite something, yeah.
Gosh. What are your memories of? Were you impressed by the quality of the sets used, or were they a bit flimsy, a bit wobbly? I mean, it's usually Doctor Who that gets that reputation of wobbly sets, but did you experience that on Blake 7?
A wall did fall down when a lovely actor who just passed.
David Collins?
Yeah. I think it was him who fell against it.
Oh, gosh.
He was in my episode, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, yeah.
And he fell against it when he was shot and it fell down, so they had to reshoot that, which I was quite surprised. Quite surprised that the wall fell down. It was a bit magical for me. I mean, I was amazed by when you saw it up close and personal, it didn't look so great, but as soon as it was on camera, it looked fantastic. So they knew what they were doing, those guys. Yeah. And they let me have a go with a stick with a spaceship on the end of it going across.
Oh, right, okay.
No, they didn't use that, but obviously they couldn't because of union rules, but they let me have a go.
So you could have become a visual effects person.
I know. God, that would have been such a sensible job. Why didn't I do that?
So what happened with your career? What happened to you after Blake 7? And obviously you were still getting those horrible letters and things like that. But apart from that, what happened? What was the next job you went on to?
Yeah, they were quite funny letters. They were just a bit disturbing. But my dad dealt with it, so it was fine. What did I do? I ended up playing just about everybody's daughter in Playton days. I then did a series called The Detective with Tom Bell, and I did Fighting Back with Hazel O'Connor, which was a series set in Bristol. We filmed in St Paul's there.
Yeah, not far from me.
Yeah, well, and I love Bristol. It's a great place. And doing various, I worked a lot with my father touring. He was a poet called Adrian Mitchell, and we toured together quite a lot. And he would read his poems, and I would sing the songs from his shows. So it was a kind of a cabaret, poetry cabaret. So I carried on doing that all the way through, and then I ended up I worked at the National on tour. So I started to do a lot more theatre, because in my early career, people wouldn't take me seriously in theatre because I'd started in telly. There was a slight, there was a snobbery about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's fine. But I grew up backstage because my mum's an actor, a theatre actor, and my dad was a playwright, so as well as being a poet.
Yeah.
So I knew all the rules better than I knew telly rules, if you know what I mean. I then went on and did the Ruth Rendell Inspector Wexford mystery, where I played, not the mystery, Inspector Wexford.
Was that with George Baker?
With lovely George, and Christopher Ravenscroft as well. And we did that on and off for about 10 years. And I was a sort of all-action girl in that, so it was a return to being Arlen, except I didn't have a gun, but I did have to run into a river in November and sit on top of a burglar who was running away in the water. Yeah, that was good.
Why?
Yeah. Sorry.
No. I was just going to say, you just mentioned that your dad was a poet. And recently you've been doing some poetry, performing poetry for, is it local radio or is it national radio?
This was for Radio Suffolk. I worked with a theatre company called Wonderful Beast, who are based in Aldborough. And a lot of people have worked with them. We did a show of my father's work together with lots of actors and musicians after he died. And so I'm a Wonderful Beast member. There are many of us, and we're from all over the world. So in this time, Wonderful Beast wanted to do a series of readings for children for Radio Suffolk. So you had, earlier this week, there was me, then it was Diana Quick, last week was Penelope Wilton, and all of the tales, they're all tales and poetry, and they're all on Spotify. If you go to Lockdown Tales, Wonderful Beast, we shall put
a link to it on our at the bottom of this video, definitely.
Marvellous. And the other thing I've been doing, of course, is I've got my own show of Dad's work, and I work with the same musician that Dad and I used to tour with, Peter Moser, who's an amazing musician. And so we were just about to start thinking about touring and going on tour when this all happened, because we did a gig in Soho, which broke box office records.
Wow, congratulations.
The Raymond Review Bar. And it's called Love Songs of World War III, the Adrian Mitchell Show. So that's what I'm doing. And that's what I'll be doing when I come out of lockdown, is trying to push that. Yeah.
And do you think, obviously, because obviously you're still in the industry, and theatres are dark now, I think that is the correct term. How do you think theatre is going to recover? Or will it recover?
This is it's a very, very dark time, because it's not just the actors. No. You have to remember that it's everybody, from the ushers to the dressers, to the wardrobe people, to the people who are the techies, the carpenters. It's all of those people. It's the musicians. It's a huge family that are now without work. Yeah. And I think we're very people are very happy to say, well, yes, we've got a great culture in Britain. Look how wonderful it is, but the government doesn't really put any money into it. Yeah. And bottom line, if you look at places like Germany and France and Spain, there is a lot of government funding because it's their pride. It's a huge piece of culture. Without culture, we're no kind of a country.
Absolutely.
In the end.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, let's hope that, it may take time, but, when we're out of this lockdown and things are safe for everyone, that we can go back to enjoying theatres and live performances, and we can all just have one big party.
I want one big party. That would be really good.
Yeah.
And I shall bring the jam this time to the party.
Oh, okay, deal. We'll do that. We'll do that. So let's go back to Blake 7 briefly. What are your memories of other cast members, sort of Michael Keating and the others who were there? What are your memories of them?
They were lovely, very, very nice, very funny. I mean, they were very young too.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
I think you would have been the same age or similar age as Josette Simon.
I think she was, yeah. Was she 17?
I think she might have been 18, 19. Yeah, around about that. Yeah, under 20, yeah.
She felt very close in age. She was very jolly. They were all very jolly. I mean, we had the time that was most fun, of course, when we were all together in the rehearsal rooms.
Yeah.
So I got to know them quite well. Michael, I had a little scene with Michael at one point. Mm-hmm. Yes, and I thought I had a bit of a crush on him, I'm afraid.
Why?
Yeah, that's your scoop.
That's the scoop. That's the scoop, people. 40 years ago, almost 40 years ago.
Crush on Michael Keating.
Yes, and I'm sure you weren't the only one, actually.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So, has Blake 7 stayed with you since 1981? I mean, do you still get fan letters? I mean, I know you've attended a few conventions for Cygnus Alpha, but has it led on to any other opportunities or anything like that for you?
Yeah, I did a lovely bit of work with Big Finish. I think it was with Big Finish. You have to excuse me because it happened at a very difficult time. They asked me to go in and do a radio, had a CD.
Yep.
And it came at a rather terrible time in my family history. So I went and did it. Yeah. It was like a little nugget of delight. Mm-hmm. And I was working with the guy who was the voice of Parker in Thunderbirds.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
He was playing the Golden Emperor of the Daleks.
Wow. Okay. So,
yeah.
Okay. So, so that was, so you got to work with the Daleks then?
I got to work, and they brought the model of the Golden Emperor Dalek to the studio in Brighton. Oh, wow. But yes, I've done that. I would like to do more because one of the things that really impressed me about the groups or the meetings that you were holding was how lovely the people that attend them are. And there's this real sense of positivity in the room. And I came away from those experiences feeling really uplifted and cheered.
I remember that your first event where you come onto stage and everybody's booing you.
Yeah. Everybody, yeah.
Oh, that was hilarious. That was absolutely hilarious. Obviously done in fun and in jest, obviously, not really.
Absolutely. And I gave him an old-fashioned look, so that was all right. But yes, no, they were really great fun. And I would like to do sort of more of that stuff. A friend of mine who, Sylvester McCoy, obviously does a lot. And he says it's one of the great joys of his life. He really, really loves doing it.
And also with Big Finish, they're still producing stuff. They even do a Blake 7 range, or they were, the Blake 7 stuff is all up in the air at the moment because obviously we've now sadly lost Paul, we've lost Jackie, we've lost Gareth. But, there's always lots of things. And you're an actress, so you could do other things. So
indeed.
So and
it's a Dalek one day.
I'm sure Nick Briggs has got that covered all for himself, actually. But with there are other audio companies out there, but I do know that Big Finish are still in production at the moment. Everybody's recording from their home, in their home studios. So who knows? Let's get you out there on doing some audio stuff. That'd be fantastic.
That would be lovely.
It would, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So, when you've encountered fans and you said that it was you've gone away feeling uplifted, were you worried at all about meeting fans?
One of the reasons, you see, Sylvester had said for a long time before, he'd said, you should do these things.
Yeah.
And I can't. You don't understand. My character was a baddie. People hate me. I was really nervous about it.
Yeah.
Really nervous. And he said, no, it's not like that. They're all lovely. I said, you haven't seen my letters. And so when I came to the first one, I brought a friend of mine with me.
Yeah.
Said to her, you've got to look really strong and tough. She plays a lot of basketball and she's quite strong, but I just thought I just need somebody to be there just in case.
Yeah.
It's a funny old world. And of course, there was nothing to worry about and it was lovely and the booing was so delightful. It was like being in Panto.
Yeah, and definitely.
It was just great. Such a nice feeling happens in those happenings that you do.
Yeah, and hopefully, there will be other people doing those sorts of events for Blake 7 going forward, and I'm sure there will be, and I'm sure you'll be invited to take part. So there we go. You just mentioned Panto. Have you ever done Panto?
No, I haven't, but I am fascinated by Panto, and I have a book called Potted Panto, which is very early Panto, and I'm planning to put together one for the village where I live. It's like a sort of over the top Panto, but these were done between the late 1800s to the beginning of the 1800s. Yeah.
So, are there a lot more elements of, say, like commedia dell'arte and that sort of thing?
No, they're just sort of more melodrama in a way. There's more melodrama going on, and there are no pop songs.
Yeah.
It's old-fashioned in that sense.
Yeah. And it's behind you and all that sort of.
Yeah. It's a bit of that. There's always that.
Yeah. From Blake 7, did you get to keep anything? Did you take anything from your time on there?
Yeah, so I was quietly given my gun. I had a little gun, shot mothballs, and I was given that, and it was nicked by a flatmate who, if I ever find them. And the other thing I took was my black and white all-in-one that I wore in the last scene. And that has disappeared. I've moved so many times.
Yeah.
It was in my magic dressing up box for a long time. And it's not there anymore.
No.
But I have got my script.
Yes.
Still got my script. And that is, I suppose, the thing about the whole character for me, and the reason I've never really let it go, it's always I was so young when I played that character. And I really enjoyed playing that character. And I think that's affected me, as I've grown up. There's a little bit of me that will always be Arlen.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
So when I need a little bit of courage, for example, that's like, let's kick in the Arlen here.
And that's exactly what you did when you went to conventions, obviously.
Yes.
So prior to lockdown, what else have you been working on?
What else have I been working on? I do a lot of coaching for voice. Right. So I work with people who've lost their confidence. I work with, people right at the top of their game, CEOs of multinational companies. But I'm just bringing the things that actors know about managing nerves and using their voices to the business world, if you like.
Yeah.
And I like it so much because these are people who've never really thought about their voices.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not actors, and I'm not turning them into an actor, but I love that. I like to see the change in people. And I'm taking that into a master's in executive coaching at the moment.
Wow. Okay,
so I'm studying. I'm studying. I'm a student.
You're studying a master's degree. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Fantastic.
there are some brain cells left.
But I suppose what you're doing with them is that you are applying those skills and techniques learnt as an actor, which you can apply, when you're giving, say, like a presentation, especially if you're a chief executive, having to give, your yearly presentations where you report to your, what's the word? Not board of directors, but your shareholders and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's all of that, and everybody, generally speaking, is a little bit frightened of public speaking.
Yeah.
And they may not admit it until they're faced with a situation where it's compulsory. And then the dread takes over. So what I do is try and show them how to manage that dread and to start to find ways to enjoy it and to be themselves, not to try and be anybody else or, So I love that. I love it. And I love it when I just see somebody blossom. That's for me a great joy. Apart from that, I've been talking to a friend about doing some comedy with her quietly. She's a comedian, stand-up comedian, and she's writing quite a lot of stuff at the moment. So we're looking at that. Because my face means I never get to do comedy. And I love comedy. Really, really love it. So that's the next plan. So that's right at the inception at the moment.
So you've got a lot, hopefully, coming on, really, with the comedy and the master's degree. Just don't get the two mixed up. That's all I'll say.
No. Maybe that would make it. They'd never forget that dissertation, I think.
Absolutely. A former tutor of mine, I think it was part of his master's degree. Actually, it was a performance type thing, and what he'd done, he'd actually written the whole thesis, and then as part of the performance element of it, he took the only copy and he burnt it in part of the performance. But he got the highest grade possible because of all the work he'd put in, and it was that was one of my old college lecturers. But yeah, I remember that. But don't do that.
That kind of thing. I love that sort of bit of anarchy. That's the Arlen in me.
Yeah. Anarchy's the way forward, absolutely.
Totally. Humanist anarchy, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So, time is about to run out on us, and I just want to say thank you so much for giving up some of your time today to talk about Blake 7 and everything, and the fact that you still are a Federation officer.
I am a Federation officer.
Yay! She said it. She said the line.
Oh yes.
Yes. So before we finish, did everyone die at the end? Think carefully about your answer.
Yeah. I've never made that decision. I actually haven't been able to make that decision. Only those who were shot and fell know the answer.
Right.
Yeah. Also, I've been laid out flat. I didn't know what happened exactly at the end. Remember, because I got clunked by Michael.
Well, you'll find out a bit later on when we do the tweet along. So I'm not going to spoil it for you. Okay, so we've now come to the end of this video. So thank you so much for giving up your time today. So I'm asking all of the actors to nominate a charity. So people who've watched this video, if they've enjoyed it or not enjoyed it, they give a small donation. So would you like to nominate a charity?
Yes, I'd like to nominate the Food Bank in Axminster in Devon, who are working really hard and who are finding it very difficult to supply everything they need because the need is enormous at the moment. So that's what I'd like. Well,
we'll put a link to the charity at the bottom of this video, and it will go out on our website. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.